Hola clase, hoy vamos a hablar sobre el imperfecto del subjuntivo. Okay, so the topic for today is the imperfect or the past subjunctive. We're first going to talk about formation. Okay, so step one of forming the past subjunctive tense is to go to the they form preterite. Okay, remember in preterite, if you have an AR verb, your endings are a, aste, o, amos, aron. And your ER-IR forms are I, iste, io, imos, ieron. Okay, so we're going to be going to that aron or ieron form. Then we're going to drop off ron. And then you're going to add these endings. Okay, you'll add this one set of endings regardless if the verb is an AR, ER, or IR. Those endings are ra, ras, ra, ramos, rais, ran. Okay, there is an accent that's going to be picked up here in the we form to keep stress. You'll see that here in our next examples with comer y hablar. Oops, let's get rid of this. Okay, so let's look at comer, to eat. Okay, so we went to the they form preterite of comer, which is comieron. Then we dropped off ron, and we get comiera, comieras, comiera, comiéramos y comieran. With hablar, we went to hablaron, then we dropped ron, and we added ra, ras, etc. So we get hablara, hablaras, hablara, habláramos, hablaran. Okay, so that's the pattern you use for any regular verbs in the imperfect subjunctive or the past subjunctive. Okay, what's going to make conjugating this tense a little bit more difficult is the large amount of irregular preterite verbs. Now, I did give you in class a sheet of all the irregular preterites, okay, just to remind you what we went over in chapter 2. Okay, but we are going to look at a few here on your note guide and on the PowerPoint here to remind ourselves of some common ones. Okay, so like my note says here, if in the preterite that verb was irregular, it had a stem change, a spelling change, etc., it's going to have that exact same, change in the past subjunctive, okay, because you're going to the they form preterite. So let's look at a few of these verbs. Okay, you make sure that on your note guide you're writing down this third column. Okay, let's look at decir. Decir is an irregular stem verb. Its stem is di. Okay, so in the they form, it's dijeron. Therefore, when you drop off ron, okay, your endings are going to be ra. Okay, so the yo form would be dijera. If you want to conjugate that all the way out, it would be dijeras, dijera, dijéramos, dijeran. Okay, same is going to apply for hacer and poner and poder. All four of these are irregular stem verbs, as you see on your irregular preterite note guide. Okay, and here are their yo forms. Hacer becomes hiciera in the past subjunctive. Poner becomes pusiera, and poder becomes pudiera. All right, ser. You see on your note guide there that ser, dar, and ver, they're not really in a group. Okay, ser, ir, dar, and ver. They're really hard to group. They're just flat out irregular. Okay, so you'll notice ser and ir have the same conjugation. In the they form preterite, their conjugation is fueron. Okay, so when you drop off ron, the yo form, you're going to get fuera. All right, leer. Leer is a verb that in the preterite has a y in the soul. Okay, and that's to avoid the triphthong. So in the they form preterite, leer is leyeron. So when you drop off ron and add ra, your yo form is leyera. Okay, that's going to keep the same change all the way throughout. So it would be leyera, leyeras, leyera, leyéramos, leyeran. Okay, and then you've got dormir. Dormir is a stem changing verb. It's an O to UEU, just like you see on your note guide. Okay, so in the they form preterite, that stem change does occur. It's durmieron. Therefore, its imperfect subjunctive form in the yo form is durmiera. Okay, now that we've talked about formation, let's talk about usage. Okay, go to the back side of your note guide. Now, let's take a look back at what we learned here in Unit 5. In Unit 5, remember at the very beginning, we talked about when we could use subjunctive. We knew that two things had to be true in order to use subjunctive. We were always looking for number one, a change in subject. Okay? And then number two, we were always checking to make sure that our main clause verb, or the first verb in our sentence, was weird. Okay, and remember the acronym WEIRD. It implies someone's wish or want, emotion, an impersonal statement or request. Your R is request, and then your D is your denial, doubt, desire. Okay, so those are your first two things on the back of your note guide that have to be true. We'll get to the third one here in a minute. Okay, let's just take a look back again at what we did in Chapter 5. So I hope that you study. Let's see if this is a subjunctive sentence or not. Number one, is there a change in subject? I goes to you, yes, and is the main clause weird? I hope, yes, that implies someone's wish. So this is a subjunctive sentence. When I translate it, I get yo espero que estudies. Okay, so you may be thinking, all right, we're talking now about past subjunctive. Okay, so when would I use past subjunctive? Well, your third rule for using past subjunctive is that this main clause verb must be in one of your past tenses. The ones we're going to focus on in Chapter 6 are this main clause verb has to be in the preterite or the imperfect. Okay? I'm going to show you a list of which tenses trigger present subjunctive and which tenses trigger the past subjunctive. Okay, but like I said, in Chapter 6, we're just going to focus on if that main clause verb is preterite or imperfect, and these other two things are true, okay, then you've got to use past subjunctive over here in your subordinate clause. All right, so here's that list I was talking about. In order to use present subjunctive, okay, your main clause verb must be weird. There must be a change in subject, and then that main clause verb is going to be in one of these tenses. We focus primarily here on the present tense in Chapter 5 when we said, like, I hope you study, I prefer that you study in the library, etc. Okay, so when one of these tenses occurs, it's going to cause present subjunctive or present perfect subjunctive. We're going to talk next week about what is present perfect subjunctive. Okay, and like I told you in the previous slide, what's going to trigger past subjunctive, okay, is when that main clause verb is either in the preterite or imperfect or one of these other past tenses. We will again focus on preterite and imperfect. Okay, so let's look at some examples of when past subjunctive would occur and when it wouldn't occur and when perhaps we may use an infinitive. So let's look at these three sentences. One of them is going to require past subjunctive. One is going to require preterite. And one is going to require an infinitive. Okay, take a second to look at these to figure out which one would require subjunctive and which ones wouldn't. Okay, we're going to write these down on your note guide. Let's go over the first one. Juan wanted to celebrate his special day. We did not use subjunctive here because there was no change in subject. Okay, so we would simply translate and say, Juan quería celebrar su día especial. Okay, go to number 2. Juan wanted that we celebrated his special day. Well, let's see. Is there a change in subject? Yes. Is the main clause verb weird? Wanted. Yes, that's someone's wish or want. And is this main clause verb in the preterite or the imperfect? Yeah, it's in the past. Okay, so this number 2 is your sentence that's going to require past subjunctive. We have Juan quería que celebráramos su día especial. And then lastly, let's look at 3. Juan has friends that celebrated his special day. Okay, he has these friends. So, really here, he has these friends. That's not a weird verb. There's no need for a subjunctive. Okay, we just translate this sentence. Regular, indicative tense. Remember, indicative means not subjunctive, essentially. So we have here, Juan tiene amigos que celebraron su día especial. Okay, let's see if this little lesson made sense to you. I've got some practice problems for you. Our directions say, please complete these sentences with the preterite tense. the past subjunctive or an infinitive. We will do number 1 together, and then I'd like you to pause and complete 2 to 6. Number 1 says, the teacher preferred that the students studied at home. Okay, number 1, is there a subject change? Yes, teacher to students. 2, is this main clause verb weird? Preferred. Yes, it's someone's wish, want, desire. Okay, and then is it in the past? Preferred. Yes, that is an imperfect verb. So you need to put estudiar in the past subjunctive. That would be estudiaran. Okay, please pause me and work on numbers 2 through 6, and then we'll review. Okay, repasemos. Number 2, I saw that you read at home. Okay, I saw. Is that a weird verb? No. Okay, so you cannot use past subjunctive here. This is just purely preterite. So we have leíste. Notice there's an accent. If you're wondering why, take a look back at that irregular preterite reference sheet I gave you. Okay, number 3, it's a good idea to paint with a paintbrush. Okay, there's no change in subject. No need for subjunctive here. Es buena idea pintar. Okay, number 4, he denied that they knew the answer. He denied that they knew. Absolutely meets all 3 requirements. This is a subjunctive sentence. Supieran. 5, she hoped that her daughter slept enough. Okay, so, yep, it is also going to require subjunctive. You've got durmiera. And lastly, number 6, Juan doubted that I went to the game. Again, that meets all 3 requirements. Ir is going to be in the past subjunctive, fuera. Okay, if you've got any questions, comments, or concerns, please write those down. I'd also encourage you to get out your conversación y repaso and look at pages 142 to 146 to read a little bit more about the imperfect.